David Berman changed the way so many of us see the world. I wonder how David Berman is doing? It's a question every serious Silver Juice fan asked themselves from time to time. To be a fan of his work was to worry about him. He'd had serious problems with dangerous drugs and he'd attempted suicide, and in 2009, when he ended Silver Juice, he wrote an open letter in which he revealed, with shame, that his father was Richard Berman, a lobbyist who David said led campaigns against animal rights, trade unions, and even opposed anti-drunk driving groups. In interviews, he talked about how he often had little money. More recently, he described himself as someone suffering from treatment-resistant depression, and he mentioned that he and his wife Cassie no longer live together. It was a lot for anyone to handle. Even if we didn't know him personally, we worried. David Berman wrote songs. He also wrote poems, truly great ones, but most people who know his name know him because of his music. His tunes were basic, but he wrote melodies you could hum. When I think of lyrics from his songs, I hear them in his voice. His chesty croak rising and falling along the handful of notes he could reliably hit. It feels important to note that his lyrics, which seem to be beamed in from another dimension, were used in service of songs that were generally sturdy and sounded good wherever they were needed. Yesterday David Berman died, at the age of 52. If he had passed a year ago it would have been equally horrible, but somehow different, since he hadn't been heard from in so long. But after almost a decade of near silence, Berman returned in 2019 with a new project name and a new album and plans for a tour. The record, Purple Mountains, was one of his best, filled with his richest production and lyrics as sharp as any he'd written. He seemed unsteady in the small amount of press he did to promote the project, but it sounded like he was hanging in there. The sheer amount of activity around Berman this year suggested he was coming out of something, as if we might set the worrying aside for a little while.